Hey guys, Chad Trofgerben here. Welcome back to the Steve and the Alien tutorial series. In this lesson, we'll be focusing on how to create some props for our animation. This will involve the gun you see in the promo video, the van, the spaceship, and even the muzzle flash we can do ahead of time to save ourselves some grief further down the line when we are working on the bulk of the animation. So this tutorial will focus on the gun that the alien is going to wield when he opens up the back of the van and starts shooting at the UFO. So to get started, let's first make a group layer. A group layer is like a switch layer in that it can house multiple vector layers, except that you can't switch them in and out. You can basically take a bunch of vector layers and group them together to create one object. So go to your new layer button and choose group. And we can just name this gun. And with that, we can drag now the first vector layer into the gun group layer. And we can also just double click to rename this layer, and we can name it body. Now we'll take the add point tool. I will turn autofill off, and I'll just make sure that my width is at 4 and my stroke color is black. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. I'll start with the back of the gun and work my way up. So starting right about here, I'll just come down and go like this. And there we go. This is now the back of the gun, and we can make a couple of tweaks here if need be. But for right now, I think it looks pretty good. So next, we'll focus on the part that connects above this part and goes over like this and basically forms the barrel of the gun. So again, taking my add point tool, I will start right about here and go up. Get a couple of details in here for the gun. And then go over like this. And then we can create the barrel, tip, kind of like that. Go over like this. Right about there. And then we can bring things down a bit. And then like that. So now this is the silver part of the gun, I'll just call it right now. What we're going to do next now is create like a place where we can put the hand right down here. And then we'll put a handle here, and we'll put the clip here, and then we can also create a trigger right here. So if you want to at any time, you can create multiple layers for this stuff. That's why we have the group layer in place. So if it's easier, you could create a new layer for this particular piece since it may overlap the barrel. And to do that, we can just make a new layer and we can just name this support or whatever you want to call that part of the gun. And before we do that, we may want to fill in what we've done so far so that we can see what we're doing when we go to this layer. So for right now, and I might add a gradient to this stuff when I'm done, but for right now, I'll choose the paint bucket tool and then come up here to my fill color, and I'll choose a dark gray for the fill, and then fill this one in dark gray, and then choose a brown color like that, and then fill this part in. That way we can kind of see what's going on here before we venture forth with the other parts. So anyway, coming back here to the new layer we just made for this part of the gun, we will start right about here and come down and go over like this, and we might need to create a couple of points along the way so we don't create too much of a bowed look to it. And then come up like this. And we might need to add another point there and bring it down like that. There we go. Now next we can do the clip for the gun. So I will make a new layer for that just because it seems to be easier to do. And I will name it clip. See, originally I wanted this to be a Tommy gun. It kind of looks a little bit different from the side, but it's still supposed to be a Tommy gun, but we can use our imaginations right now if we wish. And starting, well, right about here, I'd say, we can just come down. Make it a little bit rounded since it is supposed to be the side of a clip for a Tommy gun. And come in like that. And we can also fill this stuff in. I didn't fill this part in yet, but I'll just take a dark gray color just for right now for a reference. And for the support piece, I will just fill that in brown so we can kind of see what we're doing so far here. Now finally, for the last piece of the gun here, I will add in a handle. So again, I'll make a new layer and we'll name it handle. Now, taking the add point tool, I can start right about here and kind of go up like this. I might actually undo that. It's looking a little bit too obvious. There we go. That looks a little better. And then I will just fill that in to create the handle for the gun. I can adjust that if needed. Now finally, we'll need to put an area for the trigger. To start, I will click on the body layer and click on my select shape tool so I can select this portion of the body. And I'm going to remove the fill just temporarily so I can do a couple of things here. Next, I'll take the add point tool, zoom in a little bit here, and I will draw a circle. Now you could also use the add shape tool for this if you really wanted to. It's just a matter of preference. So once I've done that, now I will take the paint bucket tool and fill in the area, because now I have that area for the trigger. Now let's add some details to the gun. We can make a new layer, and I'll name it Details, and move it all the way to the top of the list, and grab the Add Point tool. This time I will reduce the width of my lines to number 2. That should work for us. So now I'm just going to go through and add a couple of lines here and there just to give the gun a little bit more detail. So let's start with this part of the gun. I can just come in here and basically draw a circle that within this, not a circle, an oval, within this oval-like shape. If I was drawing a circle, it'd be a perfect shape and not a very long oval. But anyway, come in like this. And I can take my fill tool and change it to stroke and just fill it in like that. And we can make a couple adjustments if need be. But that looks pretty good for right now. Next, we'll start right about here. We'll just come up and go over like this. Again, taking the fill tool, we can just fill that in. Then we can add some lines going across here. So I'll start right about here, and I'll double click to create a straight edge and then go across. And if you want a straight edge, you can do the double click method, or you can click on the sharp corners option that you have above your drawing area. I'll do the same right here. And of course, we can choose to fill those in. Now I'll give some details for right now. We can always add more details if we want. It just gives it a little bit more pop when you are looking at it. So we need to do 2 more things. We need to apply some color gradients to the gun itself, and we'll add some shadow effects to the details just to give it a little bit more depth. So first, we can focus on the shadow details, because that will probably be the easiest since we are on that layer right now. So to do this, we can double click on the details layer, and then go to shadows, and then turn your shadow on. Now there's a few different options we can play with here. We can change the direction, the shadow color, offset, blur, and expansion. Let's see what it looks like right now, and that'll give us an idea of what we should tweak, if anything, while we are working on this. So I'll click OK, and then render my project out by going to File, Preview, or Control R, or Command R if you're on a Mac. And we can see that the shadows are really offset, so we want to change that. So we'll change the offset of the shadows to 2. We'll try to change the blur to 4, and then see what that does for us. Looks a little bit better. What I may do is just reduce the blur even more, and then try it. And that looks a little bit better. You can see it's hard to kind of even see it at first, but it just adds a little bit more subtle detail to what we are doing. And if you want even more shadow, you can play with those features. But again, it's just kind of a little subtle detail you can add to your drawing. Now let's apply the gradients. So let's go back here to the body, because I'll start with this part of the gun. And I will choose the Select Shape tool. And then we will choose the effect to be gradient. From here, we can choose a gradient color that goes from one color to the other. And as you can see, we have a white to black preview going on here, but we're going to choose a lighter brown to a darker brown. So where the white icon is, I'll double click and try to find a lighter brown color. Then double click on the dark version of the gradient and choose a darker brown. And we'll leave it at linear and click OK. Now we can adjust the way the gradient looks by taking our select shape tool and moving this portion around. You can see as we do this that we are changing the gradient as we move this around, or as if we expand this out. The more we expand it out, the more the gradient is spread out. If you have this closer, you're going to see the gradient go from light to dark very quickly. So I'll try to spread it out as much as I can with this, and that looks pretty good. Next, we'll focus on the handle. So with my shape select tool still selected, I will click on the handle layer and then select that shape. Then take the eyedropper and click on the back part of the gun. That will apply the gradient to the handle. And if we select the select shape tool again, we can see this, and I can just kind of nudge this around and move this up and down like that. And we now have the gradient applied to this part of the gun. And now I want to do the same for this part right here. So I will do the same thing. Select that layer, choose that shape with the select shape tool, take the eyedropper and select either the back part of the gun or the handle. Select the select shape tool. And then we can just apply a gradient like this. There we go. Now let's apply this same method to the metal parts of the gun. So selecting the body, I'll take the select shape tool and select the metal part of the gun, and then go to Effect, Gradient, and then we'll choose something that goes from dark gray to light gray. So I will start here, and let's select something that's kind of bluish gray. Like that. And actually, that would probably look pretty good if we went from that to black. But I will just choose something a little bit lighter like this. And we'll click OK. Now we'll have to adjust the gradient like we have been doing. So this time I might go from dark to light. Let's see how that goes. It looks okay. I actually might need to adjust the gradient. It might be a little bit too light. So I will click on that shape again and then go back to the gradient effect by simply clicking on the three dots you see next to the effect on your style bar. Double click on that light color and choose something that's a little bit darker. It looks a little bit better. And what we might want to try too is a radial gradient. Maybe that will work better for this. So if we click on the gun and then go back to our gradient and choose radial as opposed to linear, and then click OK. You can have that radial effect take place instead, which is your color going from the center outward. And if I just adjust like this, that looks pretty good. I like that better than the linear color. Now finally, we want to apply the same to the clip. So we click on the clip, click on the shape, select the shape, choose our eyedropper and select the base of the gun, and then take the select shape tool and we can nudge this around and kind of get something that works out here for us. perhaps something like this. All right, there we go. Now there might be some tweaks you want to make with this. You never know. You might want to just add some more details, or you may want to adjust some things. Like for instance, I may want to go back in here and actually adjust the body really quick so that this is a little bit more pronounced. Like that. You know, you can just do little things like that if you wish and tweak however you see fit. And those are little things you can do. It's kind of like your characters. You might want to go back and tweak some things after my lesson because there might be different things that you want to apply to this that I necessarily did not. And you could make a different gun entirely. Just because my alien's wielding a Tommy gun doesn't mean your alien has to. He could be wielding a laser gun or a rocket launcher, whatever you want to do. So just again, use your imagination and have fun with this. And once again, finally, I can render this out to kind of see how the shadows of the details play with this. Anyway, that wraps up this lesson. I hope you guys found it helpful. Be sure you go to File and Save so you can save the prop so we can bring it in later on when we're doing our animation. And I will see you guys next time.